I'd ask clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Warren?
Here.
Commissioner Zimmerman?
Here.
Commissioner Henning?
Here.
Commissioner Jarvis? Here. Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Snyder?
Here. Okay, then, we start with our opening prayer with Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Warren. Do you need to say the pledge after?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us all here today, keeping us safe and in your will. We ask you to keep others in your will throughout the world, of course, with the situation taking place in Ukraine, but not just there, but throughout the world and all the continents. Keep people safe and keep the world safe. We ask that you would bless us today in this room, both as members attending as well as members on the board. We ask for your wisdom and your guidance in making determinations and decisions on behalf of the citizens of Lapeer County. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looking at the agenda, do we have any additions? Yeah, would note one, that would be put on the item of nominations. I do have a nomination to make.
Oh, yeah, no, okay, sure. Wasn't sure what you meant by nominations, but yeah.
I'll support that.
Appointments would be a better word.
Appointment?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And our sheets are going around to look at for budget and other travel and other items. Now, our typical habit to see what departments would like to report to us. So, minutes, thank you. Jumped right over that.
And I'll make a motion to move the minutes from March 10th.
And, okay, we have support. Any discussion? Any corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, now, thank you. Copy again.
Morning, Commissioners. Just want to give you a brief update. This week, the front of the court from Lapeer County, Christina Baldwin visited our office on Tuesday, and we spent half a day together, kind of showing her how we do things and asking her how they do things. It was a beneficial joint meeting. Also, want to let you know that we're still working on the Scale 41. That's our annual statistics from the state with respect to caseloads and finances that our office has going on. That will be due in the beginning of May. Hope to have that done in mid to early April. And about half of our staff is done with the wage study, so we're plugging along. Any questions I'd entertain? Yes.
Just one quick question. I know going back to coming out of the original rough pandemic that and the courts being closed down and trying to do everything virtually, and that took things twice as long. We were trying to go back and forth. Are we on the way to being caught up? Are we caught up?
We're approximately, well, I guess it depends on what your definition of caught up is.
Right.
We have approximately the same number of caseload. It's slightly less, but it's to our benefit to call the numbers every once in a while, remove people on there that are not enforceable, people that are disabled, incarcerated for an extended period of time, things of that nature. That's something we always need to review. But with respect to other operations of the office, the only thing that I've seen diminished that have not returned to pre-pandemic levels would be the amount of hearings that we're able to have in the referee's office. It just takes a little bit longer for everything to be virtual, and unfortunately, you gotta wait for a lawyer to show up, you gotta wait for their client to show up, and half the time they don't check their devices in advance. So what should be a 30-minute hearing turns into an hour 30 because You don't want to have to reschedule and come back another day, waste the referee's time. But that being said, we are within the statutory period from when the referral from the judge to the referee, and I'm always available to act as a backup referee. I have availability about 3 days a week, and a few days a month I do hearings. So we're plugging along, and had meetings with the judges this week, no complaints. So fortunately, things to be doing as good as we can.
So you mentioned virtual, but you're still doing a lot of virtuals, and we're not back to people coming in, is that?
Our default is to have people virtually unless there's a very good reason to have them in person. I believe it was last week, we had a situation where an individual was hearing disabled, and statutorily we have to make arrangements to accommodate them. We did so. However, he showed up in person despite the explanation which was given to him over a month in advance of it's going to be on Zoom. You can have hearing devices in. These people will be online to help sign. And this individual showed up, said that wasn't his preference, so we adjusted and we're going to make an accommodation for him. But for the most part, if we're able to do it online, we just do that. Keeps people out of our office. And half the time we have hearings, people bring a little entourage that have nothing to do with the hearing, and it just kind of lessens the stress level, not having a group of people standing outside of the door. So it seems beneficial, and we intend on keeping it that way. It's certainly more convenient for some of our clients who are up north or out of county.
I understand convenience.
Yes.
I thought about that myself. I thought about the public being able to be invited, but they can't. But not being able to show up at a county building for a case, that's my personal opinion. But nobody elected the people that say this is what they want. I think it's something we should be looking at in the future. That's just a personal thing. I understand convenience, but some people want to get back to human in reality because of all the stuff that's going on.
Presently, the state courts, through their directive, the Michigan Supreme Court, it's their directive that everything majority be on Zoom if possible. We have seen some shake up with decorum. Every once in a while, you got to remind people, take off your hat, don't smoke. This is a hearing, but for the most part, people are fairly respectful, and we have the we still have the option, such as with show causes, where we have individuals appear because they're not following the court's order. Either they appear in front of me and they tell me their plan to correct the course of action, or I say, okay, you have a date physically in front of the judge, and incarceration is the ultimately stick. So we still, it's not as though we've removed all enforcement options, but.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's just you. I was just curious, because I thought we were a little bit more open than that. I'm surprised. I mean, we've gone beyond the ridiculousness that we've gone through. So that just kind of shocked me. So,
I think this is a bit of a new normal, but we are certainly entertaining whatever is the most effective, and we permit attorneys and the clients to let us know if they have a request to have it in person, but we've yet to have one that we thought was a serious concern or that we needed to accommodate. Usually the attorneys don't get the exhibits in advance, and just because you're not prepared is not a reason in itself to have the hearing in person. That's my position. Anything else? There you go.
thank you.
Next.
Defer to the other. I'll knock this out quick. Just for the stats for the week, we had 19 arrests, 1 out of Inland City, 4 out of Lapeer, 12 from the sheriff's office, 2 from MSP. Charges, 7 were felony, 14 misdemeanor, 1 civil. Of the 19, 17 were male, 2 were female. We had 138 traffic stops for the week, 9 car crashes, 1 resulting with the injury. In the jail, we've got 1 receiving medical treatment, and we have 2 detoxing from drugs and alcohol. So, real quick. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to have Nancy come up to talk with you regarding the advisory committee and the senior millage, and then Todd is going to take some time to provide you with an update regarding AICC program. As I told you, I want everyone to remember that we do more than just COVID follow-up. So Todd is going to start that today. But first, I'd like to speak briefly on a couple issues that have come up. First, last week, an individual questioned during public time webpage that I believe was pulled up on their phone and indicated group sessions at AICC, which is Alcohol Information and Counseling Center, were on hold. To clarify, this was not information on our current website, as AICC was conducting group sessions for quite some time, including during the pandemic, and we're in fact conducting a couple that day. Unfortunately, Google doesn't always clear past information. And so we believe that what came up in the search was our update page from nearly 2 years ago, March 29th of 2020, when nearly everything was shut down. And on that page, it did indicate the group sessions were on hold, but now you know why. Second, as I'm sure many are aware, came to our attention came to the attention of our senior programs director this past week that there were some games being played at the senior center that involved some monetary exchange, not necessarily large amounts, but some monetary exchange. To allow time for her to quickly research and ensure that all activities were being run according to legal guidelines, she asked the centers to refrain from money exchange, not games, but money exchange for this week only, while the matter was being checked on. The intent was not to shut down the games, but simply to ensure that things were run correctly. Knowing the importance of this to our seniors, we moved fairly quickly to get the right answers. The end result is that the seniors at the centers will be provided with the necessary information to resume these activities by tomorrow, based on the state's legal guidelines. Further, copies of the state guidance will be kept at the centers and the senior program offices to ensure that future leadership will have the necessary documents regarding this issue so that we don't have to go through this again. Nancy did make individual phone calls to as many as she could reach, some several times, to explain things and also to let them know that it would be resuming with guidelines. And with that, I'm going to have Nancy come up and give her report first, and then Todd will report on the AICC program.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. So this past Monday, on March 21st, the Senior Programs Advisory Board held a special meeting to go over the proposed ballot language and proposed millage rate. Right now, our office is working on typing up a copy of the changes that the advisory board suggested. They're just small changes in the language. We're going to get that language down to downtown so that they can review it. Do you guys have any questions?
And this isn't you're talking about in the ballot proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the proposed
Yeah.
ballot
Our
language.
prosecutor will probably take a quick look at that too.
Yes, absolutely.
When you say that you're getting that ballot language downtown for them to review it, what are you referring to?
Sure. So the changes that the advisory board suggested, we're just gonna get it downtown to, I know Quentin and the team, so that they can make sure that it's.
To the county. Okay. So
Here's the
you
benefit
mean
of county.
get it.
Quentin's downtown.
It's right
Our
here.
downtown. The county building.
Yes, to the county, to the Lapeer County. Thank you.
Thank you for your interaction with all the seniors. I'm sure it took a fair amount of time. It must have been reasonably successful because I know we don't have a lot of seniors in the room today. So, thank you.
She's been very diligent.
Morning, Commissioners. So I'm just, Kathy had asked me here to kind of talk about our programming a little bit, and like as she said, it was that was pulled up. At the start of the pandemic, we did shut down temporarily the groups because of obvious reasons. We were actually having therapists outside meeting with people individually early on as we were trying to figure out how to do it electronically through Zoom. So currently, we probably have half of our groups running face-to-face, and the other half are still through the Zoom platform. So we're in three different schools. right now doing programming. We do some programming for parenting in person. We're actually down in Dryden at the high school running a weekly parenting class as well. So we're almost back to full capacity using treatment dollars and prevention money. Our treatment's still a little bit low as people work their way in, and the state is letting us know that the consumer has the option to either be in person or if they want telehealth or Zoom. So we're accommodating them as they need.
And I think that's a good thing you pointed out too, because the Zoom is there if they want that, and I agree with that if they're desired, not a requirement. In which case, they can choose to do that, that's good. And the telemarketing is also, I think, a very good deal. A lot of doctors right now are sorry they had teledoc, because sometimes seeing a doctor is better seeing your eye facing you than it is to be on that screen. So there is some bad issues with having teledoc, but
Right, it
should be a
certainly,
personal choice.
it certainly is a good and bad. You know, some of the social determinants of health we're trying to get at is that transportation issue. So it certainly gets at that, and you lose a little bit of that connection as a face-to-face. But we're, like I said, we're accommodating everybody that comes in as best we can.
Thank you for your.
Other questions for Tom? I do have one.
Yes.
We've heard that generally the pandemic has caused more drug use, more alcohol use. Is that borne out in our county? Are you seeing more activity from your perspective?
We're seeing the activity. I think they're with the Zoom platform option and the Medicaid expansion. I think it gives people more options to go to different agencies and smaller agencies or even agencies out of town to get services. We're still seeing people come in, but we haven't seen a skyrocket in treatment cases. Because I think, like I said, the intent of the expansion of insurance is to provide more opportunities for people to go to different agencies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other departments would like to have a moment or two.
Actually, I have a question for the health department, real quick. I didn't interrupt anything though. And this might not just be the health department though, this might actually be for administration. But I noticed in your budget packet, there was something in there called a cost allocation plan, $10,000. I think that's pretty standard, correct? To come up with a cost allocation plan. I'm just curious, and as I said, this might not be a question for you, it might be a question for them, yeah. How much money is spent on cost allocation planning throughout the year?
It's a one-time, it's an annual fee.
Yep.
So for theirs, it was 10,000, and I think the county pays 12,000 for our plan.
Oh, for the whole building?
Yeah.
Okay,
For the whole
that,
county.
All departments.
All departments, yes.
okay, that's all I was just trying to, I figured it's building by building, correct? You do it based on
Yeah,
square
it's
footage.
we hire a third-party actuarial type person.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure, I figured that's what it was, but I just wanted to, because I seen it and I had questions about it.
Through the audit process, we determined that it is easier and more cost-effective for the health department to have their own actuarial because they just have so many programs.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other department? Seeing none, then time for our public, if they wish to make any comments. Please. We invite you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Christy Grochi. I'm the executive director with Advising Care. We were here a couple weeks ago to bring awareness to the auto no-fault reform that happened in 2019. We are requesting that we get put on an agenda, one of your agendas, so we could come and give a presentation. I know that we covered everything that happened and the detriment of that last time I was here, so I'll just do a quick little recap. But we are for the reform that happened. We know that it was needed. We do feel that home care agencies were an unintended, catastrophe that ended up being in that. A lot of home care agencies have had to close their doors, leaving people without care that they need in their homes to survive. So just to recap a little bit, we were typically charging between $28 and $32 an hour to send a caregiver into someone's home. And now it's going down to $14 to $16, $18 an hour on average. There are some auto insurance companies that are paying as low as $11 an hour, reimbursing us $11 an hour. So it is extremely needed, and we have about 10 to 13 counties that have adopted a resolution that we have brought in samples. I believe we gave them to you guys last time with Brian Harrison, emailed them. Saginaw County just approved the resolution this past Tuesday at their Board of Commissioner meetings. And so we're just asking to get it on your agenda so we can just show you more, go more into detail of what we're really recruiting for. Thank you.
What's your name?
Christy.
Christie, would you give me your card?
Yes, I will.
Might as well piggyback on here. I'm Julie with Advisor Care Home Health Care as well. I'm home care consultant. I'm a home care consultant with Advisor Care Home Health Care. This past weekend, 3 more big home care companies stopped taking auto business charging all their auto clients. We have 3 clients in Lapeer County who we're trying to hold on to by, just a threat. We're trying not to discharge because there's nobody left to care for them. These are quadriplegics. They can't do anything themselves and they don't have families to help. I know you mentioned there was an auto accident and someone was injured. If that person doesn't have family to help, they're gonna go to nursing home. That's the only place there is for them. So we really need the help. We're now in a dire situation. If we close our doors and discharge, there's absolutely no one left. And better start building more nursing homes. So.
Thank you. Other members of the public would like to comment?
Good morning, welcome back. Hopefully everyone will. Good, I hate news. Just a couple quick thoughts. Just wanted everybody to know and the public to know that there are people out here that look at the fringe of what most people call the news. And yes, indeed, there still is a convoy circling Washington, D.C. Pictures of it, article about it. And all they want is for the COVID mandates that were re-signed by President Biden last week to end. Enough is enough. We're there, we're done. The DC establishment is very unhappy that there's a convoy circling their freeways. They're adding to the congestion, getting to the city, but they're not impeding anything. So unlike Canada, where they were parked in the main roads, they keep the convoy moving. And that's their legal right to do. The other thing is I do want to thank the board for the trust in me and being part of the senior programs advisory board. It's very eye-opening to see what the actual breakdown of how our tax dollars are spent. And apparently across the country, there are a lot of politicians that seem to believe that if you're very honest with the public, then the public won't support you. But I'm in a position where I'm going to be vocal. I'm going to tell the public when asked where their money is being spent. But it's not the thing to do to actually come out and tell the public. I was told by 2 separate people that it's the voters' responsibility to go find out where their money is going. So be prepared for a lot of voters to come ask where millages go to and what it's all about.
Good morning. That just leads me right into something I was gonna say at the end, but Brendan, I just wanna thank you for, hope you're feeling better, thank you for, I don't know when it was, good couple months ago, when you, I think, texted me or something and let me know when a meeting was, canceled, because I think it was weather. But anyway, Mr. Pierce just said that, it's up to the voters to find out what's going on, and we showed up at a township meeting this morning, a work session, and we were the only ones that showed up. And there was no cancellation notice or anything else. So we're trying, the voters are trying. We're showing up. So anyway, I want to thank you for that. A couple things. There's a woman who is being considered for a seat on the Supreme Court, and she was asked to define woman. It's not that she can't define what a woman is, it is that she won't define what a woman is. Because those on the left want no difference between men and women. When you no longer differentiate between a man and a woman, neither one will be appreciated for the wonderful differences and strengths that they each possess. We will no longer be valued as creations of God. Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. We have been on this slippery slope for a while because we have stood on sand. We have allowed it to shift underneath our feet. We have chosen tolerance over good judgment. It is not fair for any of us. And then the policies of the governor, MDHHS, and OSHA have failed. Social distancing, masks, mandatory shots. Now there's a letter out that MDHHS has sent out for proposals for expanding, enhancing emotional health program expansion. I know that's a long letter title. The grants are open to public and nonprofit entities. And one thing about that is, I don't know if I believe churches are nonprofits, and I know there were churches in Genesee County, there was a list of them that received money to have shot clinics at their church, and I don't think that fared well for them. And nonprofit entities, local health departments, community health centers, community mental health agencies, federally qualified health centers, nonprofit hospitals, school districts, federally recognized tribes, and other organizations qualified to provide mental health care to school-age populations. Before that information, it reads, the purpose of the Expanding Enhancing Emotional Health Expansion Program, RFP, is to support comprehensive mental health services to children and adolescents in a school-based location by a licensed mental health professional. Expanding Enhancing Emotional Health is a program model of the Child and Adolescent Health Center program. Again, a problem created by those who will provide a solution. It needs to stop. I know there is a forum plan between students, the sheriff, and others, and I so appreciate our sheriff's department. I know they mean so well. I know that they love the constituents. I know that they love the children in our schools. But I hope that this is not a forum that is paving the way for more intervention and indoctrination of our kids. We are grooming them. Education needs to go back to education. We were just at a school board meeting and we told them the same thing. There are services everywhere. Stop with this social emotional learning in the schools. Get back to what we want our educators to do. I'm telling you, there will not be a public education program. There will not be government schools. There's so many kids leaving. And when there are other options provided, maybe somebody my age that wants to step in and help families, believe me, I will do whatever I can to help these families. Thank you.
Other members of the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on then to our agenda. Regular board meetings, it's not uncommon, we don't have a lot of topics because they've typically been discussed in committee of the whole. So we'll see more motions, but I did want to bring up the topic of an appointment. One of the areas that we've, I guess, caught some comments on was making sure that our attendees at Community Mental Health Board were regular. And that's sometimes been an issue. We do have a situation where one of our current county commissioners, Commissioner Miller, has indicated he would resign from the CMH board. And with his permission, if he resigns here, then I have a person to nominate for appointment.
Yeah.
Okay, then I would like to nominate Quentin Bishop to replace him on the board. Support. And if there's discussion or other nominations, this would be the time to talk about that.
Well, that fills our seat right now. That would fill, that's still working.
Current seat.
Our current, everything's
You
still.
made a nomination, we need a motion.
So do we need to do anything with Miller first, that he resigned, or?
I mean, technically, well, no, I don't know, do you assume chairman positions, because isn't it a position appointed by the chairman?
No, it is not.
Oh, it's not.
No, it's a position we elect for 3 years.
Gotcha.
You're gonna be making an appointment to an unexpired term.
Correct.
So it doesn't change the term of that spot. It just replaces the person in that spot.
Gotcha.
But we have a nomination. I am not sure as chair, you could make that
We do.
motion.
I make the nomination, and then we'll see if there are other additions or other, but we do need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we put
We
Quentin
appoint.
Bishop into the CMH spot, and I support that.
Very good, thank you.
For the remainder of the term. Okay, then we have a second. Any discussion or?
Is that at the desire of our administrator? Is that-
I accept the nomination.
At least at this point, I think as we look forward, we've been struggling as a board to come up with 3 positions that we're entitled to have on the CMH board, 3 people. This may be a temporary fix because we know at least 4 of us are going to be gone with the new board. So there may be new board members that want to play a very active role. So we'll see if Quentin at that point wishes to continue or not.
So I'm just wondering whether or not that motion should be crafted in such a way that it indicates that it's just for this calendar year, because I really see that as controller, administrator, and I respect and appreciate his desire to serve. But we've got a lot of heavy duty plans coming down the road, and Quentin has already taken on some yeoman responsibilities with a couple of the big projects that we're exploring right now that may require a lot of oversight in the following year. And with the new board, like you say, this problem not only should resolve itself, most likely will. And so if there's a way in that motion that you can indicate that it's just for this calendar year, I just don't want to see that become.
Well, like, my understanding is the seat is still gonna be open until it's time. So at that first of the year, when that
That would
changes,
be
then we'll
another,
have to appoint somebody.
Really?
2023 is when this position expires, and they're determined in the bylaws.
Beginning of 2023, end of 2023.
Let me get that date,
Probably
March 31st. And if it becomes to where it's not something he can fulfill, then he could resign and do the same thing at any point. just like this is happening today.
It's as if we're filling a member of the board of commissioners. You can't say, well, we're gonna fill you for, 4 months, and then if someone else comes along and wants to fill it, well, you just have to appoint it, then they can resign, and then you refill it until the end of the term. It's set up in terms, not as, let's see, ad hoc appointments, but chairman appointments, so.
The terms are equalized by their bylaws, that it rotates specific number of members every.
I get all that. I just expressed my concern over that. I just don't want to see an administrative position, especially a key administrator for the county, start having to get involved in what I see as our responsibility.
Okay. I think that the order until March, that would give the new board a chance to be seated and find out what everybody's desire is.
Do we have the ability on this board, maybe you can answer this question, sir. Do we have the ability on this board to appoint alternates?
No, the two requirements are you must live in Lapeer County and be appointed by the board. And then we have the representation requirements. No more than, the mental health code says no more than 4 commissioners can serve, but because you only have 7, it's limited to 3 so as not to produce a quorum. And then there are requirements related to persons served being represented in the form of primary, secondary consumers.
There are no, like a lot of boards. you can have
There is a
alternate.
limit on the number of public officials as well. So I would have to research that one.
I believe we were told no before.
Pardon me?
I believe we were told no before on alternate.
Yeah, you can't have an alternate.
Yeah, you just raised the question, I guess you got in terms of the person that we have has to live in the county.
Has to live in Lapeer County.
So that is at this point, I think, still up in the air.
Rick, when you selling your house?
Come on over right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
Why don't you,
So
the vacancies, or the vacancy or tendency, the problem is been going on for a while. It could wait another, why don't we just either remove the motion or just to explore a little bit further. I'm just uncomfortable, and again, I appreciate Quint's desire to serve. I'm uncomfortable with starting down that path of putting those responsibilities on the administrator.
Oh, he just
I know, so.
well, we've got, even though we have the motion, our candidate right now, though I know he's working hard to try to change that, does not live in the county.
Housing situation.
So we probably need to withdraw the motion and ask Commissioner Miller if we can continue until we can.
Can I rescind my resignation?
Since it's not in writing, I was going to ask about whether we needed that.
Yeah, we probably would have had to approve it anyhow, so, yeah. All right, I'll rescind it for now then.
Okay, so it is under discussion. We are concerned in that area. We'll keep striving to get full attendance. We've made certainly some steps. Okay.
When are your meetings?
The third and last Thursday at 5:30. And then generally a board member serves on a committee, and the committees generally meet once a month.
So 3 meetings minimum a month.
Right.
And then they're very active in training.
Yes, there are training requirements, extensive training requirements. I mean, if you really want to understand how the CMH system works, there's probably 10 to 15 hours of training initially, and then ongoing training is within the CMH board bylaws.
They do send a lot of people to trainings.
There's a lot of different aspects to that, that helps.
So, in fact, if you'd like to join us, we're meeting Saturday morning for a few hours for strategic planning.
All right, we had this discussion, right? But if they're having a strategic plan, I will be leaving out of town, so.
We appreciate having Rick, Brendan, continuing on that. Okay, since we've withdrawn the motion, looks like we'll take that action at a later point. We need to move on to draft motions from the committee of the whole meeting. I asked Commissioner Snyder to help us with those.
4 pages into your agenda. 1 page of motions, draft motions from the March 17th committee of the whole meeting. I will move all motions 1 through 6.
I support.
Discussion. I do have a couple, if nobody else wants to go. One would be motion 4. There's a typo, I think. If you go down about 5 lines, it says, and further that all employees, I think would be not.
Not received.
And then I have a question about motion 5. Is that, it's just the way that's worded, are we with this motion hereby establishing that policy? It's, the wording makes me wonder, it says like we will, but it's not just we will, we are. That's the intent, I believe, of that motion.
What was your question? What was the question?
The question is, does this motion really read so that people, including the board members, understand that we are establishing this policy with this motion?
Must be approved.
There's not a policy coming later. I think we're clear.
Well, we had that discussion last week. This is absolutely more clear than the original one, but you've got proposed wording that'll tighten it up even more that addresses your concerns.
That's the only thing I can see, it's my English teacher's background. Long story. I might add to enact, I might say hereby enact.
There you go.
Your plan is good.
Instead of the word to, you want the word hereby.
Not, I wouldn't take out to, I just add in the word hereby.
Okay.
If that's, will the maker of the motion
Absolutely.
and the second approve that as a friendly amendment? I said, yeah. Okay. All right, then I apologize for
No
all
problem.
those interruptions.
No problem.
We have a motion. Friendly amendment corrections. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of page 1, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Thank you. That, believe it or not, ends that part. Personnel. Commissioner Snyder's back on it.
Yeah, we have a real life personnel, beneficial to the property, the outfit that was meeting afterwards, but it's waiting on us, so. John came before us on just this one issue of the lifeguard pool attendants, trying to wrap this up as we're into the season. And I guess there were some motions and directions that came out of the board as we were heading into the season a few months ago, as far as what we wanted to pay of lifeguards and attendants to be. And so they moved forward with that direction. And then John basically noticed that, hey, it would be really convenient if we just enact something that actually creates a matrix of what the pay scale is for both lifeguards and attendants. And oh, by the way, when you guys decided to give credit for previous year's experience, there was no cap on that. Although I don't necessarily see a 40-year-old lifeguard with 20 years of experience, technically it could happen. And so both motions 1 and 2, which are reflective in the attached matrix, just address those 2 issues of what the salary is going to be and what the cap is going to be that you get. You get a little bit more for coming back for the next 2 years, and then after that, if you love us so much, you keep coming back, you're going to be broke. So I would move motions 1 and 2.
And I will support that.
Housekeeping explanation.
I think we have a motion. Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay. Now on to properties, Commissioner Sender. Perhaps we can go one by one.
I would make a motion to recommend to full board approval for purchase of a 4 Lenbo Think Station P340 for Harmony Hall to use in the work order day media lab program at the cost not to exceed $5,377.28 at no additional cost to county general fund.
Support that.
Quick question, is that no additional or at no cost?
That should be at no cost. Yeah, no cost.
Is it, I'm assuming it's CMH fund.
So strike the word additional.
Yeah, right, no cost. But that's,
I take that back, because the way we have to spread our costs, a portion of it could hit our local funds. But they're already allocated funds, so it would technically be no additional cost.
Yeah, we're already committed to those.
Right.
General
Right.
fund.
Right.
Okay, so any further discussion then on the motion with that word eliminated?
But he's
He's saying we store it back to the original.
Eliminate? Yeah, we
Right.
should keep it.
There's no additional cost, but it could take a few cents off the $110,000 that you allocate based on, the cost is spread based on whether you have Medicaid or indigent care. So some of our indigent care comes out of our county local funds, so it could hit that $110,000.
But as you're saying, it's already allocated, so it's not, this is
Right.
not money on top of what was allocated.
But it would be a line.
Which is why it's going back to the no additional.
No additional
It's
cost.
already,
Because it
it's
could still
budgeted.
be.
And within, it's budgeted, and within the budget, there's a small contribution by the county.
Right.
So therefore,
Well,
to
that's
be
true.
transparent,
All of
we're not gonna say no cost of county. We're
Right.
just saying additional.
Additional cost.
Because the CFO is comfortable with that. Okay. Then with that, any further discussion? Those opposed, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
okay, next one, recommend, or make motion to full board to approve buildings and grounds request to sell items no longer needed or used by various county departments at public auction at no additional cost to the county general fund.
Support.
And that is just our typical way of disposing of items that we no longer need or want. That is going to, all those items are going to Raleigh's spring auction at the fairgrounds in Emily City, Michigan. So they will be sold to highest bidder.
Quick question, will there be a list of those items?
There is a list of those items attached, I believe.
I'm not in the minutes, it must be somewhere.
Yeah, we have those.
Yeah, we had a list in the properties committee. It's, the old pontoon boat from Krasuski, the old tractors from the parks, the old mowers,
If anybody wanted to list, they could contact.
Well, it'll all be on Raleigh's site as well. Because there's many more items.
I'm sure there's a long list. But we could get a copy from administration.
Sure.
I think that'd be good for the board, just to have a copy.
We'll get a copy.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second on that. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried.
Make motion to Footboard to approve Parks request to increase the cleaning fee at Forest Hall from $25 to $100 at no additional cost to county general fund. This is the amount of the deposit that when somebody rents the hall, and what they found at $25 that nobody wants to clean up their mess. So if we could increase
They
that.
can put a little more skin in the game.
If we could increase that to 100, that would work out much better.
And if they clean, they get the money back.
Yep.
So choice to get the money.
Okay, so that's a motion,
That's a motion.
And that's
a second. And several supports. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Fourth one, I make a motion to approve buildings and grounds to request to enter into an agreement with the DNR for a $47,000 grant to repair a culvert on the Pollyant Trail to be refunded after the project completion, and further to allow Lapeer County Road Commission to carry out said repairs at no additional cost to the county general fund.
I support that, and as he was explaining, we will be putting up front, but we will be reimbursed from that.
So this is a grant from the DNR in regards to the culvert repair of Bowers, just south of Bowers. The culvert is washed out on the Pollyant Trail. It's approximately a 14-foot drop down there, and probably well over half of the trail is actually missing. This is one that we've been working on for approximately the past year. So the road commission is not actually doing the work, but they're subcontracting it out, and they will manage the project. The way this works, once the project's done, we pay the road commission pays the contractor, and the DNR reimburses us.
Who's responsible for getting this sizable grant?
Who's responsible for it?
Who got the grant? Somebody did work to get it.
So this was a combination effort between myself, John Bussell, our trail specialist from the DNR. I would throw Mr. Novak in there because he hooked us up with the guy from the road commission, and he also had a part in this. So it was a combination of a lot of efforts. And this is one of those things that government is slow. It took a long time to get this stuff all in place.
But we appreciate the effort that you and others put into getting it, because that is pretty significant. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
This one, I make a motion to approve administration's request to allow the Lapeer Chamber of Commerce and Downtown Development Authority to take over responsibility and payments incurred with maintaining the power at the historic courthouse pavilion at no additional cost to county general fund.
Support.
To give everybody a little update on this, this is something that I believe chamber came to administration. They did their Santa Claus thing out there. They had to have some power. There's no power at the pavilion. They had to string some extension cords in places that maybe they shouldn't have been able to do. Caused them some aggravation. They would like power at the pavilion. They're willing to pay for it. Because we own the building, the power is going to be in our name. We're going to pay the bill, and they're going to reimburse us for that full amount.
So just to clarify that, you're saying the power does remain in our name?
Yes.
Okay, further discussion?
Just one other housekeeping question for administration. Is this agreement, because there is finances involved, is this agreement in any way reduced to writing? We've had experiences in the past when you guys looked at the pavilion, the previous boards from 20 some odd years ago made policies and rules that there was never a paper trail on. So I would think something like this might be significant. We just had the party sign off on.
The agreement will be formalized. First, we sought to gain permission to move forward, and then we'll formalize it in writing. It'll be sent to the Chamber of Commerce and the DDA. They'll go through their board meeting. They'll be able to see it and agree to it. Everything moving forward with those organizations will be signed off before anything's implemented.
And the worst happens if they renege, we always shut the power off. So don't be a loss to the county.
One thing that
Spoken
struck
like
me
a
was.
true landlord down
One thing that struck me was what happens if we want to use that? How are we going to pay for the power?
They just won't reimburse us.
They'll charge us for our share, which we won't really know. That's the kind of thing I think that the letter agreement would help with.
His question was, if the county was to use that power, then who would pay for that? My understanding is that we would go to the Chamber of Commerce to open up the box so we could use it, probably make an agreement with them at that point. It'd be like you're renting my house. I don't tell you what to do inside the house.
Right.
Stop paying.
There's going to be someday we want to use the pavilion for some event. Just have that gut feeling.
Are you planning on having a board meeting over there?
That's a great idea.
But in this motion, do we need anything that says, in effect, we're approving this with a formal letter to come?
Would this be kind of like a lease contract, us signing kind of thing? I would think.
No, not a lease. It's just an agreement that they're responsible for the utility, the electric utility of the pavilion. And so they're not leasing because this is technically a community pavilion. We can use it at any time.
Right.
And they actually may use it and not use electricity, right? Just because they're in using it doesn't mean that they're using electricity. We're just saying that if they have an event and they prefer to have electricity, it's made available to them. And if they use it, they pay for what they use.
Well, but there's a minimum charge for electricity.
Their bill for electricity is completely theirs. Yes.
Right, it's theirs. Whatever this bill is, okay, if they don't use it, there's still a minimum charge for having it hooked up.
Right.
They're paying that every month.
Right.
And that's what this agreement that they will.
And also added that we didn't have in here, but they will have a box on there that they control keys, so just not everybody can use and it won't be plastic, it'll be a solid box, and only they could have access to open that up.
How about adding to the motion then with the little language that says with a formal letter of agreement to be
That was what I was going to suggest. Right after
approved later?
pavilion, to just add in the language with a formal agreement prepared and authority given to be signed to the county administrator and or chairman.
at a later date. Is that okay with the maker and the second?
I think so.
Okay.
One more quick question, I'll get that out of the way. How are our electrical infrastructure over there, is it all good? Because I know there's been discussions, and I don't know when that was put up, but some of our electrical infrastructure is kind of old. I figured now that electricity isn't down over there, might be the time to update it. But, I mean, is it all fine? No need for updates at any time in the future?
As far as I know, Brendan, I think it's just pretty basic
I figured
electricity.
as much,
And I don't think that
there's any, okay. Just wanted to
We're
ask.
talking to replace the plug.
Yep. Definitely safer too.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question since, it's sitting out there for however, probably since it was built, right? And that we've updated it, so just want to make sure we didn't want to do any updates before we turn the power back on.
Okay, we have the motion with this little bit of added language. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, now, Commissioners, under still on, go to our line. And we have some revised language that will be presented.
Yeah, so you all have revised with 2 different pages of revised motions before the ARP. So the first one, make motion to Footboard pursuant to the recommendation of the ARP committee and in response to impacts of COVID-19 public health emergency to accept the quote from Chapman Sports Center for the purchase of a 2022 long 21-foot marine patrol boat, the amount of $54,385.08 to be paid through ARP Fund 281.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
So everybody knows, in all transparency, our sheriff's department boats that they have been using are quite old. I don't believe that any of them are actually designed for sheriff patrol. This boat is. This boat is outfitted with, this price includes all the outfitting of the equipment that they need. I know one of the boats that they currently have was purchased, I believe it was some type of forfeiture type situation.
Purchased it from their insurance company.
Yeah, so we've never really spent any real money on like getting the right tools, so this kind of falls in that category. And the boat that they, like say, currently have is, I believe, 15 years old.
I'm sorry?
I think it's 15 years old, the one that you have now?
No, it's 99. So
23.
So.
And they, we've had in the past drowning the lakes. We had doctors in the area that drowned, and everybody heard about that. It's a very well needed thing. We can't be using outdated stuff. Some will say a little bit bigger boat, that may be true, but they'll be able to get places faster.
Well, and this is also for patrolling and the dive. So that's why they wanted a little bit bigger boat, because with the dive team and the equipment that they have, makes it a little easier with the little bigger vessel.
Okay, discussion. I guess I've got to weigh in a little bit then, nobody else. I was the only no vote. This is the first no vote I've cast on the ARPA committee for any recommendation. And I have a problem with this because I guess underlying the whole thing is this assumption that the county has the primary responsibility for this patrol work. And I don't believe that we've ever done that. I think all of the money coming for this area and the dive team has come from either private sources or from the state. And in fact, I think this is a state program.
Yeah, it's provided through the DNR.
Sheriff,
Yeah, I mean, the
is willing
DNR,
to take.
the DNR obviously has given us grants over the years for certain things, but I can assure you that money has dried up to the point where we're barely having enough grant funding to cover hours for manpower to control the waterways. So the funding sources drastically changed over the years. We don't have access to the homeland security monies that other surrounding counties have, like St. Clair, here on St. Mike, that all touch the big water. We don't have that kind of access to funds. So yeah, it's been self-funded for a long time. Personally, I think that it's time that we invest back into it. Yeah, I think we still owe it to our citizens to patrol those waters and make sure everybody's safe out there, especially, you know, areas like the reservoir. That's a big body of water. There's a lot of things that go on out there.
So in the reserves, these are reserve officers that are on?
No, they're actually trained Marine Patrol unit guys. Some of them are full-time deputies that do it kind of on the side. Last year, we had 774 hours that they worked out there with over 1,700 contacts. So it's impactful. I think that's the reason why we don't have the incidents we have out there.
When we talk about the reservoir, how much of the reservoir is Lapeer County?
Well, I mean, quite a bit of it. I mean, well, obviously we share it with Genesee County, but it's still a waterway. I mean, it's pretty fluent all through there.
Does Genesee County have boats out on this too?
If they do, they don't patrol it very often because they have, you know, the Fenton, Lake Fenton, all those other big bodies of water. I mean, they probably don't have a huge marine unit either. So I'm sure it's pretty small for them as well.
What happens if and when this boat requires repair?
Yep, so yeah, all that recurring
Replacement?
costs, that's all through the DNR grant that we have left. We've used that for the last forever. It's never been a cost to the county for the maintenance for the boats. So we've actually used part of that money from the DNR grant itself to take care of all of our, service all of our marine units.
But that grant's not enough to cover?
No, for a new boat.
Have we asked?
I'm sure we have in the past. I don't have the privilege to everything that's happened in the past with that, but they're not handing out boats, I can tell you that.
I think we ought to ask. That would be at least one of my suggestions before we spend this money. One last question. How, the size of this boat, how big does it need to be? And given the size of 21 foot, what lakes in Lapeer County, other than the reservoir, can this be used on?
Well, we can use it. I mean, obviously the smaller ones are Lake Epstein, we can use it. Lake Lapeer, all the bigger waters we can still get into.
We got Lake Pleasant, Pleasant Lake.
Yeah.
There are several lakes that could be used.
And we have the equipment to move it?
Yeah, we would probably lake trailer.
That was all discussed in our art meeting, if you remember. That was all discussed in our art meeting. They have a pickup truck to move this.
Which was proven, yeah, where we got the truck from.
I mean, a 21-foot boat is not that big.
Right.
I personally own a 20-foot that I use extensively in the summer, and I honestly don't go out in Lapeer County very much, but you know, I like the bigger bodies of water and stuff like that. But I know with all our county departments, I think that we really owe it to them to give them the right tools to do their job. And a 21-foot boat, and these are questions that I asked before I went along with this, because I wanted to make sure that this was the right size boat for them. And they assured me this is what they needed. And with them having the dive team, I completely understand that.
And I'd like to comment too,
Well,
because as a
Commissioner
voter.
Snyder wanted to be in the question line. I didn't let him in, but I better let him in now.
And so I think you get a lot of specific answers to a lot of your specific concerns. Just want to hit you with one generalized answer. Maybe I could sway your no vote back to a yes. Yes, it is the sheriff's department's responsibility. We have to have some level of response capability. I've talked about this before. What makes law enforcement very convoluted in the state of Michigan is the fact that we are not unique, but we're in the very minority of states that have both townships and have a state constitution that has a state police. A lot of states have a Department of Law Enforcement and they have a highway patrol. We have a state police. And then the fact that we have townships as well as cities and villages, our constitution says health, safety, and welfare, which includes law enforcement, is the responsibility of local government. And then on top of that, we have a state police that has law enforcement powers as well. So when we talk about mandated services that the sheriff's department provides, road patrol, believe it or not, is not one of the mandatory services. But we do have to have some level of response. Above and beyond what's mandated by law, there's also public mandate. The small size, population size of townships in most rural counties, Lapeer County included, does not have the capability to be their own police department, have their own resources, which is why the public turns to the sheriff's department. And I say there's a public mandate. The public turns to the sheriff's department for this type of assistance. And the state police, although they're going to be out there doing their highway interdiction interaction, they're also going to be providing reactive services a lot to the various counties, 83 counties throughout the state. They do not have the capability to plant boats in all the waters throughout the state. So sheriff's departments are looked at to provide this type of service. And that's why the state turns around and provides grant funding to help support those initiatives. But they don't go buying everybody hopes. And so it is kind of our responsibility, and then you go into my fellow commissioner over here. But if it's our responsibility, it's also our responsibility to make sure we give our people safe, operable platforms. So when you're talking about an old, smaller platform to be operating out of, it's just not a safe situation for our people. They need to be able to have a larger platform to be able to operate steadily out of, be able to do other operations like dive and things of that nature. So it is a very reasonable request, and it is the sheriff's department's responsibility to have a response capability, an investigative capability. And that includes waterways. It just doesn't include dry land.
I'm sorry. As far, well, go ahead. No, I was just to touch on, for the smaller bodies of water, we do have a 15-foot vessel that we can put in the water too, so. We have, welcome back to that.
Sure. But if you talk about size, so 21 foot sounds like a nice boat. I mean, a lot of people don't have boats to get on that thing, like it's pretty big. You put that 21 foot in the water, it gets real small fast. So you're in an emergency situation, and you're trying to bring in people, and you're arresting people, you need as much space as you can get. To try to jeopardize that by trying to say, let's go to a 20 foot or a 19 foot. Like you said, you got 15 for the smaller lakes. The 15 is like a rowboat, right? If you're trying to do something, right?
Yeah.
If a canoe, you can tip that boat over. A lot of people don't understand. You take a boat, it's like you take a glass of water, put it in the sink, and you have it on an angle. That glass will float all day long. As soon as you tip it just a little bit so that water goes in, the glass goes like that. A boat can sink that fast and you're in an emergency situation. So 21, I think, is pretty healthy. And as he said, you got 20 foot out by St. Clair. I wouldn't go anything less than 24 out there. Just that's the differences in the water. So, but I think it's good for safety.
Well, part of my position, I'm completely for it. Our dive team has struggled and raised the money themselves because we haven't budgeted any of it. But it's about time.
And I was on the dive team for 14, 15 years. And when you're on these boats with all that gear, I mean, it takes up a ton of room. There's so many tanks out there, everybody's VCs and stuff. And, and if it's a recovery effort, you have to bring somebody else on board or two. Get into all that, but yeah, room is crucial when you do those kind of operations.
And all the equipment you have to carry.
Yeah.
Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, I'm sort of on the fence, but not really. I'll explain why. I've heard the dive team explanation like a million times since I got here about, oh, well, we don't fund. Honestly, I never understood that. I think we should fully fund the dive team. That's just my position because it's a public service. And with this, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to have a boat. Why not? There's gonna be situations that take place on the lake. I know Genesee County does have a couple of boats, just from what I've seen and heard. But my only struggle with this, is the price, which I know nothing we can do there. That's probably the average price of the boat.
We do have 3 bids.
And we have the 3 bids. But the price is kind of steep to take it all out of the ARPA fund. And then my question is, here's my question. 3 of them. One, when will we actually receive this boat? Because I'm assuming it's going to be built, or is it already pre-built?
From what I understand, it should be available for this spring.
That's my understanding as well. I haven't heard different.
Okay, because I know with the cars, it's been a struggle, so I was just seeing it similar.
And we have a really good relationship with Jason's. They take care of it.
Okay, so there's not gonna be a massive delay then?
Right.
Okay. And my other questions, have we talked or looked at DNR grants for this? We have, and there's nothing available.
And I don't remember the gentleman's name, the officer that actually,
Deputy Cummings, maybe?
yeah, he had talked about that, and, there just isn't anything available. And like I say, we're only funding the cost of the boat. It's not the maintenance, it's not the staffing, and this isn't anything that we haven't done for the past quite a few years.
Yeah.
We're just updating one boat in their fleet. They have 2 boats and they have a jet ski, some type of jet ski.
Yeah, the jet ski was a
Whatever.
donation by one of the deputies.
Yeah, whatever they call it,
Yeah.
So
nowadays.
by knowing that we've got these 2 other vehicles, are we setting a precedent where when the 14-foot boat, which is how many years old?
That's an 07.
When that needs to be replaced for any reason, are we assuming that we replace it?
No,
Not
this
state
is
or the jet ski?
This is our money. This is one-time money. They know this.
Right.
This isn't, we're gonna fund this forever. But if this boat is, this should be as good as the last one that they had, which they're replacing a 99. So we should be good for the next 23 years.
Right. Yeah, and the boat we're replacing, it's a 2-stroke, smaller. There's actual major issues with the fiberglass falling apart off of it. I mean, it's
And the purpose of
not
this
we're
ARPA
just
money-
coming for money because we know there's money available.
Well,
That's not what we're doing.
do you mind if I finish up my question here real quick? Rick?
That's my fault.
Have we talked to Genesee County about some sort of agreement with some of the lakes that we're connected, like the Holloway Reservoir, maybe getting, I don't know about getting funding, and the reason I ask this is, one of the things that I'm concerned about is we'll get this boat, and I know the staffing has been an issue at the sheriff's department. It's a struggle. We're gonna get this boat, and we're not gonna have the staff to actually have this boat out in the water during the summer and spring. And it's gonna sit in a warehouse because we don't, because obviously our first responsibility is to be on the roads, right? So if we don't have enough people on the roads, we're gonna make sure of that. So can you address the staffing issues? And then what do you see? Do you see this being regularly used during the spring and summer? Okay, and how to address that with the staff?
So the staffing issue, I mean, yes, it's part-time, road patrol guys will do it on their off days or whatever, but we have a separate group of guys that aren't law enforcement, that aren't road patrol law enforcement guys, that they're teachers, they're people that work in the summer that love doing it. So we've never, historically, I've never had an issue getting people out there to do that. It's always been great, so.
I'm sure it's very hard to get people to go out into a boat.
Sure, yeah.
One other thing, you mentioned Genesee County, but don't they patrol up there too?
Yeah, I can't speak for Jen, I don't know exactly how much they do out there, but I mean, we still have other bodies of water, right? It's Holloway Reservoir is just one of.
That's
Four that we
but I
would be
just
using.
we do have shared stuff up there, and I need them supported,
Yeah, I don't know, that was just an idea because, they have quite a bit of water as well, and
Right.
I don't know if we come up with something that's very connected, but that's just my thoughts. I get why we do it, it makes sense, as long as it's gonna be used.
Right. Yeah, it will be the primary investment. no doubt about it.
And the other thing important here is that this was, like you said, Brian said earlier, it's ARPA money. And ARPA money, first of all, this country's giving away a whole lot of money. So we either use it or turn it away, but we chose certain things that we want to go after in counties, be conservative, but to use stuff to upgrade equipment like this and our trucks and our plows and stuff that we're using in the county. So this was our agenda in the beginning that I was talking about, before we look at any other side things that we want to maybe do if there's some leftover money. So I think adding the quality and safety to our sheriff's department is probably one of the most important things we can do.
I think we certainly owe it to our departments to provide them with reasonable equipment to do their job. And the sheriff's department, and we've talked about this several times about the body cameras, and hopefully we're making some progress on this. Because that's one thing that I really want to see from these guys. I think it's so important in today's world to protect them, to protect the county, everybody. I think it's a very necessary tool to have in their toolbox.
Okay, further discussion? You see none, I've asked for a roll call vote, please. Thank you.
Commissioner Zender,
Yes.
Commissioner Jarvis,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Henning.
No. It does, motion does pass. My only comment will be, I'll remember the comment that this is not a mandated service and that we're saying it just because we have the ARPA funds currently available. We're not saying that we're gonna buy the second boat or replace this boat. Hopefully future generations who are struggling with our 78th lowest millage budget will remember that when they have to prioritize other services.
And I'd like to follow up on that, talking about that, because
Fair enough.
this county, these people that own a boat, I own a boat, I live on the lake, so it's like you get a privilege to be as a boat owner. But the privilege comes to everybody who rides on my boat. You might come out to my boat or somebody else or your family relative. So it helps the county all over being supported by this, not just those that don't. If you don't know somebody has a boat, go find a friend. But this is something that for emergency use, don't.
My friend.
But this is for emergency use vehicle.
Well, and one thing I'd like to comment on that, okay? This is kind of like the ambulance service, okay? It doesn't matter. I live in Elmer. I got Ed Star right down the road from me, okay? If we're just worried about ourselves, okay, our own little group, that's not how this works. This is a county-wide thing. Columbiaville, my father-in-law lives up there. If I'm up there, or if he needs an ambulance, I want an ambulance to come there too, okay? Same thing with the sheriff's department. It doesn't matter. When I pick up 911 and call for police or EMS or fire, I don't care who shows up. I want somebody to show up and take care of us. And whether it's with a boat out on the lake or whether it's in the patrol car or whatever, the ambulance, I don't care. I want somebody to show up and take care of that emergency, regardless of who it's for. So,
Any other comments on this? Now that we voted. Thank you to the board for a good discussion. Motion 2 now.
okay, make motion to full board to pursuant to the recommendation of the ARP committee in response to the impacts of COVID-19 public health emergency to authorize Borough Carpet to move furniture-related and previously approved replacement of carpeting in areas at the Rich Building and Jury Assembly Room in the complex at the cost not to exceed $3,606.31 to be paid from a combination of E-Grant grant funding and Fund 281.
Support. Okay, motion and support. Discussion for motion 2. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion 3, which we have a revised edition, just to be careful.
Okay, so this one, I'd like to recommend the full board to make motion to, full board pursuant of recommendation of our committee in response to impacts of COVID-19 public health emergency to authorize road engineering, construction, testing services to provide all scope of work and project management for the parking lots at the Health Department, Harmony Hall, and CMH carport area at the cost not to exceed $14,700 to be paid from 281. This was originally 14.
We have, that's a motion.
That's a motion.
That's the motion.
Yes.
Okay, we got 2 seconds.
This was originally $14,200. Then there was some additional costs because of some manhole cover type areas. So it was a $500 additional cost. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that.
And this includes soil boring, but it includes a lot of other services we make for you.
So this will, both the CMH and Health Department parking lots completed with 14.7.
This is
14.7.
not
This is
the
the
actual
testing.
No,
Just the testing.
this is the testing and project management.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Of those.
You'll get more expensive.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, there's no, like, what? Okay, that makes sense.
This is no asphalt.
That's what I thought, yeah, I was very confused. Thank you for clearing that up.
Further discussion? Seeing those, none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Okay, number 4, make a motion to full board pursuant to recommendation of our committee in response to impacts of COVID-19 public health emergency to authorize road engineering, construction, testing services to provide all scope of work and project management for the parking lots at animal control, public safety lot, and at cost not to exceed $17,000 to be paid from Fund 281.
We have a motion and a second.
I'll say
Discussion.
Yeah, so my only question to that is, and it says animal control and then public safety lot. What does that actually include, public safety lot? Like,
We have part of it.
yeah, I know we do. Yeah, that's what I was curious.
Yeah, we've got the west end of the
Yeah.
part of the drive.
I believe so the driveway going down to animal control.
Yeah.
Okay, that drive is owned by
The city.
the city
Okay.
and the county.
Okay.
So those costs are gonna be split for the driveway portion of that. Animal control is not just repaving the parking lot. There's some drain issues there that have to be put in, so it's quite a project.
I figured as much, and then, obviously, some of the connecting asphalt is, the city. Is the city also doing the same thing as, like, are we gonna be working on this at the same time? Or is the city's gonna be kind of just left as it is, and then we're gonna be doing our part?
I don't know the answer to that, other than the road, and then I know there was some discussion about 911
Yeah.
over there. We have some property that they want to put a parking lot, so that's gonna be coming down the road as well.
Okay, so this engineering work, project management work, is gonna just be for the driveway, that little lot, and then animal control, correct?
next stage.
Okay, everything else could be left.
And negotiations on
Could be.
911, yeah.
Because in the future, we could be opening that back up.
Would the city want to get in on this though, with road? For their portion?
Their portion of the soil boring, I could itemize it, I could ask Roe to itemize what they do for soil borings for our portion of the driveway. The animal control lot is purely a county expense. The safety, the public safety lot is essentially the driveway entering in to the parking lot. So depending on how many soil borings are taken and how they break it, line item, the commitment from the city is that the project is split 50-50 for the driveway. So to say to them, hey, part of the cost is 3 or 4 soil borings, 5 or whatever the cost may be, it's all part of it. We have the agreement that it's going to be 50-50. I don't think the city of Lapeer would balk at that.
We'll have the majority, we'll be having the majority of that side.
Right.
So you just took only a couple items.
I'll bring it to the city's attention.
Yeah, and I guess I'd ask, do they want to get in on this agreement for their portion? Maybe it would be cheaper than they're ending to end up wanting to do it totally on their own.
It's
For the rest of the parking.
For the rest of their parking area as well.
They have passed a portion, I believe at the last city commission meeting, I think they passed a motion to proceed with plans they already had. I think that they're actually at the point where they're gonna be breaking ground and milling, and we're doing the due diligence and figuring out what to do next. I think that they've already passed that portion, and they're moving on to actually doing the plan that they've already paid for.
So I think it's two separate things. Number one, the condition of their land is way, way different than the condition of ours. Having said that, I think what I'm hearing is just, and I'm sure the city will be of the same like mind. Just want to make sure that there's coordination. The last thing taxpayers ever want to see is something being done, then something being torn up, something being done. So if they've got plans on surfacing, and their surfacing is going to be totally different than ours because the condition of it. But we want to at least make sure that it's coordinated in such a way that if there's cost sharing savings, that's great. But at the very least, let's make sure that one project does not in any way disrupt the other.
And to that point, I believe Roe is both the project managers for both projects. So when they're doing site coordination, right, they'll know exactly when to bring the trucks in, when to do the drives, when to not to do the drive. So that, at least that part is coordinated.
We'll hear more on this, just as they get moving.
This public safety area, is that right where the maintenance building is and that?
That's the actual road that goes in there.
So there's nothing else other than the animal control in the road? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as revised, of course, in the revised edition, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Okay. Number 5, make a motion to recommend to Footboard pursuant of recommendation of the ARP committee in response to impacts of COVID-19 public health emergency to authorize an additional $2,500 contingency for plywood replacement if necessary related to the replacement roof of the rental house roof project to be paid from Fund 281.
Support. Motion and support, discussion.
So apparently, and this is the house up back here, there's rotted plywood, and additional costs to, if we're gonna shingle it, we're sure not gonna go over the top of that, but
See no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, now we have an update amendment. Commissioner Lindsay's been bring us.
So this is a amendment to motion 80-22 of March 10th, 22 regarding carpeting. When we got these bids for this carpet, this was in like January, And with the oil prices that have gone up so much, carpet prices have gone up. So we have an increase in cost of $2,107.45.
And then I also make a comment on that, because I've been floor covering for 25 years, not because the oil price went up, but we got to deliver it, costs us more. But when you get flooring, we don't realize the carpet is made out of nylon or polypropylene, which is oil. And so oil is going up, so the cost of producing that fabric today is much higher, so that's what created this cost increase.
And I think we have the motion and we had a second. Okay, any further discussion? Lighting is everything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, that concludes that portion of the agenda. We do have, I'll ask if there are any updates from ad hoc committees that I'm not aware of. Administration has any fiscal planning or budget topics? Under that, I think I will ask our administrator, Bishop, to see if he'd like to comment on the broadband topic that he recently took some training about.
Be happy to do that. So the last couple days, I've been in Lansing attending the Michigan Association of Counties Legislative Update. Amongst those topics that were discussed by the group, I attended sessions on agribusiness. I thought that was very important. I didn't know this, but nationally, Michigan is ranked number 2, only behind California, in variety and quantity of agricultural items produced nationwide. So everything from grain handlers, ag retail, anything protective, like pesticides and things like that, logistics and professional services. The Michigan Agribusiness Association gave the presentation and was reporting on the health of agribusiness in rural Michigan. Number 1 driver right now, fertilizer costs. Main component fertilizer, potash. Who's the number 1 producer of potash in the world? Russia. So the situation, honestly, there's global situations that impact us locally. And we need to be mindful of that. And so as farmers are yielding some of the best crop prices that they've seen, wheat and grains and so forth, you have to remember the inputs. The inputs are the things that go in to make us grow and have better yields. Those prices are competing with the yield price. So they are right now strategically finding ways in our state of Michigan to mine potash and determining if that is something that we can do locally, which I thought that was very interesting. And so we can stay tuned to that. Another session that I attended was on broadband. We hear a lot about ARP money. ARP money is the American Rescue Plan Fund. It is over here in this bucket. The Critical Infrastructure Act is in a different bucket, 2 federally funded programs. In the critical infrastructure budget, $61.5 billion was dedicated towards broadband development across the nation. There's 2 programs, okay? The Broadband Equity Access Program and the Digital Equity Act. These are 2 funding programs that have come from the federal government to the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan will have, of their portions, a bit over $1 billion some to then deploy to local jurisdictions, ISP, so on and so forth, real estate, or not real estate developers, but broadband construction, the actual ISPs, and to actual municipalities that those that can participate. So what does this come down to? In May of this year, funding will be distributed to the states. States will know the number that they are going to receive from these 2 federal programs. So we'll have a number. Right now, the Michigan High-Speed Internet Department, this newly created department by Governor Whitmer, is being formed. Members for that department are being hired, and that they will be ultimately responsible for taking in the applications to disperse this money. Okay? As of right now, there is 25% match that will be required to apply for the monies. So let's just say, for example, that to invest broadband countywide for Lapeer County. I'm picking a number. This is just a number. There's no realistic study that says this number, but let's just say $50 million. Okay? It would take 12.5 million from us to qualify for 50 million. Okay? So, as they said, again, this conference was about with all the county administrators, controllers, those types of people were there. And they said, how many of you have started plans on broadband development? How many of you have taken steps investing money on figuring out what it's going to take for you to develop broadband in your county? Only 2 people raised their hands, Lapeer County and Calhoun County. Nobody else has started. They are in the sit and wait game. They are sitting and waiting for the federal government to tell them what they're going to do, to tell them how they're going to spend their money, and then they'll do the study. We are the captain of our ship, so we have decided to invest the money in a feasibility study, in a pre-engineering study. We will have that information readily available, so when the federal government tells the state of Michigan, this is the money that you have, and then the state of Michigan says, okay, we're going to create an application process, then we're going to open it up for bids. We're literally going to walk in the office and say, it's already done. Here's the study. Our information is ready to go. First in line. We're not going to get caught up in everybody rushing to the application, all the lobbyists rushing to that office trying to get the funds. We will be prepared, turn in our paperwork, give us our $50 million. Okay? It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of public support. It's going to take everything down to the townships to be brought into the conversation. MTA is going to be brought into the conversation. We are a leader in this conversation right now, so we need to remain that way. The RFP, as I mentioned, was issued last Friday. They have until the middle of April to respond to that RFP so we can get this work done, and then we can be in a position to bring broadband. What the model looks like is to be determined, who the players are, so to speak, who's going to do the work, the ISPs to be named, the construction workers to be named. But we are literally leading this conversation statewide, because a lot of folks are sitting on their heels just waiting for the federal government to tell them what to do. Okay.
Thank you for that, because it is a service that's well needed in Lapeer County, a lot of rural areas. And being ahead of the game, we can get to them that much faster too, because we'll be in front line to get that approved faster. So we tip our hat to you for the work you're doing.
It's all good.
Yeah, I think there are a number of local units who have some of their money that they would invest once they know that we're ready to move ahead with that.
My recommendation is that we call a meeting of township supervisors and or clerks or treasurer, whoever is assigned to that money, and whoever is representing those municipalities for broadband. I suggest we have a public meeting. I say we have a meeting of the minds and we discuss openly about the plan moving forward. Because when the RFP comes back, we are setting in motion boots on the ground, and so we need to have a plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for not only just the report, but one of the reasons 2 hands went up was our county administrator is pushing ahead to make sure that we stay on top of some of these big issues. And this broadband certainly is one.
Well, I will say this too, credit should be given where credit's due. I wouldn't be able to go forward with this if you didn't have the support and your board of 7 said move forward with it. Because if you all agreed that if broadband wasn't a priority, we wouldn't be having these discussions. So I appreciate the authorization to move forward with it.
Okay, nothing more from administration? See, no, move on to further motions. We have some business that we need to conduct for audits. Commissioner Schneider, please.
Certainly, I will move the road commission audit motion for checks dated March 24th, 2022. And the county's audit motion for checks dated March 25th, 2022 with the controller sanction.
Support. We have a motion and support. If we do have discussion, if there's any, seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Jarvis,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Thunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry.
Okay. It's a lot of money. I won't go into the weeds in terms of how much we just approved. Okay, moving forward on the agenda, we have now public time. Again, as we do, 2 opportunities in the meeting. If any of our public would like to come forward and make comment, it's open to you.
Alan Pierce, Hadley Township again. The last item that I'd like to talk about today and bring to people's attention is the direction that the country's headed. It will catch up. We've heard that a couple times during the meeting today. What goes on elsewhere, probably gonna end up here, is here. And somebody's got to deal with it, somebody's got to talk about it, and somebody has to be informed about it. There's a teacher that 3 letters is costing her job. 3 letters, S-H-E. That's the unbelievable drama that's playing out for the latest time in Kansas's Fort Riley Middle School, when math teacher Pamela Ricard refused to use a boy's name for a female student. The Geary County School District gave her a choice: embrace the lie or lose your job. It's a problem plaguing teachers across the country. There's the Nicholas Merriweather's case, the Tanner Cross's case, the Peter Bloming's case, and now this 17-year classroom veteran, Pamela Ricard. Where exactly is the line being a student's decision to live out a transgender fantasy and a teacher's moral right to reject it? I love all my students, Ricard insists, but I shouldn't be forced to contradict my core beliefs in order to teach math in a public school. As a Christian, she believes what the Bible says, that God assigns gender at birth, and any policy that forces her to use names or language contrary to that is violation of that religious conviction. Oddly enough, the student, again, anybody wants to look at it to prove me out or prove this person out, it's not the student that complained. The student never brought that to the teacher's attention. It was another person in the classroom who knew that this person was a girl, now wants to be a boy, wants to be addressed as a boy, wants to be referred to as him instead of she. Okay, that's going through the courts just like the other cases are. This is reality. This is all a part of what we have to face, we have to know about, we have to know, because it's going to come down to the local level of government at some time or another. And it does occasionally go to the school board's attentions, obviously, because this school board says, embrace the lie or lose your job. I lost my job at Myers because I embraced my moral character.
Other public comments?
Carolyn, Marathon Township. I forgot there was an article about CDC being slammed this week because they decreased the number of pediatric deaths over this whole thing by 20%. And I don't even think the numbers for pediatric deaths was that high, but they decreased those by 20%. And they've also decreased the numbers of deaths so far. I always think of, remember the blinds you'd pull down and then when they go up really fast. Okay, so I know it's old, but I always think of this as you pull that blind down, you're kind of peeking out underneath that blind. And then the time you pull it down and you flip it back up, well, that's what's gonna happen soon. People are kind of peeking, they don't really wanna see the lies, they don't really wanna see that a lot of those lies were to fearmonger people into taking a medical procedure, whatever. And And now they've also decreased so far, 70,000. They've decreased the CDC death by 70,000. So they ballooned it up so that people would be like fearful. Stop the fear.
Thank you. Any other comment? Seeing none, move on to commissioners' reports. Which end should I start?
Start there. Mine, people say I have to talk about local issues, and I do. So I'm going to start out with a few things. First one I'm going to start out with is I have to make a public apology, and not to the people in the audience because they're all adults, but we have a camera in this room. We have people that do homeschooling. And apparently last week I made a swear word. I couldn't even believe I used that word, but I used it in my anxiety of what was going on. So to those people, those students that are watching us today, I do apologize for swearing. I used some kind of a word, a bullwinkle or something like that. It's out of my character, but people do those things. And that is something that every student should understand, that we have to forgive some things. And I apologize, I'll try not to do that. And every leader should do the same and not cuss in front of the public. So hope you all take heed to that. People are watching what we're doing. I was excited for the fact that we have students watching the local issues. I wish we can get some adults to do the same thing. There's so many things. So I had an email telling me that, and I apologize to the instructor that's teaching these kids that I swore. Told me to stick to local issues that affect the county, which I thought I did last week. And so I have some issues I'll bring up. First is I did go attend the Michigan Works a couple weeks ago I didn't talk about last week. I'll just give you just a quick scenario on that. There's so many topics we can talk about. There are job postings that they put out. There were 17,000 job postings with 549 occupations. There was 3.3 thousand employers and 1.5 locations that are out there helping people in the community through Michigan Works and it comes through Genesee, Shiawassee, and the Thumb. I'm on that board. If we need to discuss more, I'll get more information. Quint was there with me. There's a lot of topics that could come up, but I can't remember them all right now. So I'm going to cover a few though. The other one I'm on the first I'll start out. I put it in order so I can keep track. Metamora Village, by the way, just so you know, we go to the township meetings, the villages and stuff. They announced it as of May 18th, every Wednesday evening through September 27th. There will be a car show in downtown Metamora Village that we want to attend. That was the first one. Lapeer County Mental Health. I'm on the recipient board that we talked about earlier, recipient rights. We do different things in there, and one of the things we were doing a mock-up on things that happen in the homes, issues that come up, and how they handle it. So we look at how they're handling out in the field. So as Lauren had said, there's always training in the community mental health. So I don't just sit on their board there, but I'm also on the recipients. There's a lot of people in the community that work hard and take pride in what they're doing for the community and helping them. And so those mock-ups help us understand what they're going through, issues, if they didn't get their drugs properly or whatever happened, somebody being beaten or somebody swearing, even at that level, we try to attend to that. Next thing, I sit on the board of the Lapeer County Senior Coalition. We have a senior advisory board, and we also have VAAA, which is a bigger area. On the Senior Coalition and VAAA, they're going to have on May 25th, drive up because of COVID and scare. Genesee County is more open than we are parks, but we're going to have a drive up for our seniors to go to. They did this last year, had pretty good success. That'll be at Crossroads Village, which is 6140 Bray Road. They're going to be having it so you can come up with, they can meet all the people in the community and give them services. They're looking for people to participate in that. So I passed out to the county commissioners today a copy of some of the stuff here for the VAAA Aging on Aging and their super power day that they're having. And they're looking for legislators and commissioners to get involved. There's a thing where you can sign for it. But the spring drive-up day that we're having outreach for seniors is May 20th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that'll be at Mott College, Lapeer campus, and they're looking for sponsors to also sign up for that.
and they give you a price on that breakdown, what the sponsorship is. I give you all an application, so if you have somebody who wants to put the name on an ad, they will put their name, their telephone number, and they'll put it in the ad, what they do to help county seniors. So people can contact them when they do their job and get their little bags. So that's what's happening for the seniors there. Then also, there's a group that's trying to put a hospice care facility. This particular group is, they're hoping to do this in a year. So far, that's their focus, is to open up a care house, a guest house. Because there's some people that don't have family or have any place to go, and need a hospice resident, you just go die off somewhere. They're giving them a nice home and a pleasant journey for their life. And they've had comments of people who've been through this in other areas. And it's remarkable because nobody's ever given them their life. They're bum on the street. The family feels like he's going to die with some dignity. So that's what they're trying to offer here, Lapeer. So if you're interested in that hospice, you can go to hospicehome.org, or you can call Steve Horzar at 248-496-6970. They're looking for people to help sponsor that kind of a program for here in Lapeer County. So I'm going to skip some of these things here because it's not a whole lot to know there. But I listened today, and I should have asked you earlier. But right now, the president still on his COVID kick. We have a vaccine that's still not FDA approved, although they keep telling you it is. And on their own website, you can go to them and find out. It's not approved. It's approved for emergency use authorization only. And today, I think we're pretty much set that an emergency is gone. Reality of what happened is gone. The lies that we've been told are still there. I watched local news, and we have censorship going on in this country. They're talking about Russia, how they control the media and what you hear. So a lot of people use Google. Google's controlled. We use other options like DuckDuckGo. You know that's owned by Russia. There's another one there. I don't know the new one. There's another one we can go get some information because our troops aren't coming to us. Because I get more information off of DuckDuckGo than they can Google. We should all be questioning that. So, backing up to what we heard earlier, you don't think it affects you, but it does affect you. Your gas prices, everything's going up. We have truckers that are sitting there supporting us, driving around Washington, D.C. So, the comment was made to me, that's not true. There's only 254 trucks. Like, where did he get this news from? Because I'm watching it live. You can actually find out live stuff if you search, if you really want to find out the truth. There's over 10,000 trucks at one point. 7,500 of them. Last week I talked. We have a lot of trucks just pulled out of Ohio 2 days ago, heading over there right now. And they're just going to recycle and recycle until they wake up and show the people what's going on in our country. That's affecting you and me here locally. And our kids need to hear that. It's called freedom. And everybody should be questioning, where's my freedom? You talk about vaccines that aren't even approved. If a child has more reaction to a vaccine than the actual COVID itself, why would you give them the vaccine? That's the results. That's the numbers, the factual numbers. Not because somebody told me, because I'm doing my homework and going to those websites. So my heart bleeds because of that. We didn't grow up that way. The lies are starting to come out about what happened on January 6th. That brought to everybody should know this name, and you should salute this name. And I said this before. January 6th, there was a defendant, Matt Perna, 37 years old. All he did, he's got a picture of him, he was taking a picture inside the Capitol, which Capitol Police, the FBI let him in. We have proof of that from local people in this area. Local people. But you're not taking them out. They were there. They saw what happened. They have videos. This guy committed suicide because they wanted him to lie, and they made him fight like he was going to fraud. He's going to prison for the rest of his life for what he did. That he did treason. No, the coup and the treason happened before that. Happened on November 3rd. But we're not questioning that stuff. I'm getting ready to be off the board here this year. But this isn't a county commissioner's position to discuss this to you in the community. But it is a leadership position to discuss this to you. And our state reps and our senators and anybody else that's running for office should be talking about this loud and clear today. Because your future doesn't change if we don't change 2022. You will all be listening to Russia and China. They're teaming up together. They're laughing at us. It's crazy and absurd that all of us who went to school, learned our history, didn't pay attention. That's going to be taken away from you if you don't wake up fast. Now, I'm getting excited because I believe this weekend for Florida could get tomorrow, our hope. But this isn't going to end. But I like Carol's analogy. There's people just peeking right now. They're peeking to see if it's really true. That's not my question to you. My question is, if it is true, why wouldn't you want to know? That's what I want to know. Why would you not be that desired to learn that? So you can teach those kids that are listening. Talk today about these issues. Because later on, we don't even need a county commissioner. They keep going the way we're going. And the money that's going to this country is unreal. We either spend it or somebody else can spend it. It's not going to come back to the American people. And yet they still raise that budget even more. We have to start fighting for your rights or you're not going to have them. And that's all I have to say for this week.
I would like to share a story that happened to me last week. I had the opportunity, one of my constituents, a senior, who had applied for Meals on Wheels, and for whatever reason, he was turned down. I got a hold of Nancy and had a conversation with her. And I don't know the reason that he was turned down originally. My guess is he's an 82-year-old male that probably has a little too much pride, as probably a lot of people can understand this. And I think in the questioning, maybe some answers got confused. But I did reach out to Nancy last week. She reached out to him. They sent somebody over to the home to do an evaluation, and he gets services starting on Friday. So hats off to the health department that always gets criticized for every little blurb that's out there, and is truly unfair because they do so much more than just the COVID stuff. So I really want to thank them and their staff for all that they do. Like I say, I had the great pleasure of helping one of my constituents get stuff that they were entitled to. So we don't get to hear the good stuff very often, so I thought I would share it with you folks. That's all I have.
Yeah, speaking of thank yous, and I've always thanked our controller and our staff or different people, but I want to thank Jackie today and her staff, because I have a son that crunches numbers for a living, one of my 5, like you guys do. You talk about unsung heroes, we're very fortunate that we've got a very small staff of very qualified people who spend an extraordinary amount of time looking over the fine details of numbers. And when you see us make so many different motions, so many different dollar figures and stuff like that, number one, we have a great confidence in those numbers because of those people. And as residents, you guys should as well. So Jackie and your staff, thank you. I know busy season that you guys are all in right now too.
Yep.
So.
Thank you very much.
Just thank you guys today. Also, there's an economic club meeting following this, is our LGC rep, I'll be attending that.
Well said.
I guess I would just like to ask for prayers to go out to Dryden community on the tragic fire and deaths that they had on Monday. The community, for the first responders, the police, the fire, everyone are mourning, and it affects the whole community in so many ways. Thank you.
Any other?
I just wanted to, first off, take note and say that I'm actually going to DC this weekend, so I'll be able to look at the trucks myself, and I'll report back and see what I actually see.
Enjoy the cherry blossoms too, okay?
Yeah.
You don't stop and smell the roses?
Yeah, no, I'm not really looking forward to this trip, but that might be something else to look forward to.
I was invited, or you just going out for a tour?
Oh, no, I have a work thing down there. The one thing I was kind of curious about is to see what the mandates that they were railing against the truckers. I heard different things, and I know that the big mandates are the ones on the public transportation, so I'm assuming that's what they're fighting for. But
Fighting for freedom, and they're on the outskirts of Washington DC, so you're not gonna see them in proper.
oh no, I'm gonna have to go around that.
I want you to check out Hagerstown, check it out.
Yeah, no, DC's interesting because you just drive around a big circle freeway, and so.
They're on the Beltway, they're not on
that
there all day.
A long time ago. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to see that. Maybe if I catch one of them, I'll ask them some questions because I'm something very curious about. I just want to take a couple notes on the comments, the public comments. One on the township that you went to that was closed. Yeah, I experience that at that township all the time. That's why I probably don't show up to those townships very often, because you never know when they're going to have a meeting. Luckily, most townships aren't like that, and I know we do a good job trying to post that. So just wanted to say that. I also just wanted to bring up the issue that got brought up twice during public comment, the issue on gender. Quick story on that. There's a college, I won't say which one, but in the state of Michigan that I went to recently, and their bathrooms in one of their buildings, you have a woman's bathroom, and you have an all-gender bathroom. And that's it. Now, they said it's only a temporary thing until they build new bathrooms, but that is something that we're seeing more often. I'd be surprised if I see that a lot. And, really, it's a kind of a sad state that we're in. I'm not going to get into the moral implications of any of that stuff, but it's a real problem, because the fact is that transgender individuals, 82% are suicidal. 82%. The average is about 10% in the United States.
What's the percentage of population?
Yeah, that's another thing too. 40% attempt suicide and 25% are successful, the highest. It's a significant mental situation, and just comparatively, the 25% suicide rate, that is ridiculously high. On average, about 95% of suicide rates are unsuccessful. So to see 75% of them be unsuccessful, it shows some serious trouble. And I think that's something that we really do need to talk about and address, is beyond the moral implications or religious implications, but these are people, and these are people, regardless pre-op, post-op, that are obviously dealing with some serious mental concerns that need to be addressed. I'll leave it at that, but it is a serious problem. The last thing I just want to take note of is when we do have our discussions on broadband, I would like the villages to be included as well, if you can, because I know I've been trying to get some businesses to go into certain downtown regions in our villages, and it's near impossible, especially in my district, because you have one community that has no internet access pretty much whatsoever in their community. So to try to convince a business to go into one of those old buildings is near impossible. So if we could include them in those discussions as well, that'd be appreciated. And I'm just curious, how is Indigent Council doing? I know we haven't heard from them in a while in the program. I remember when they first started that up here in 2019.
was it, or 2020 is when they first got it rolling, so I'm just curious from administration how they're doing.
They're doing just fine. I talked to Paula last week. She's actually coming in the building, having discussions. We have they send in yearly, it's essentially a grant paperwork that they file with the state. So they go in, they go over budgets, and then the MIDC, the Michigan Indian Council Corporation, that council committee, they have to approve her budget. And then what that does is it just puts what she says she's going to do and her office is going to do for Lapeer County. It officially states that with MIDC. Those conversations are having right now. I think she's coming in after spring break sometime. So she has her hands full. She very much so.
Great, but the system is working out. There are no massive pitfalls that they've uncovered yet.
I don't know about massive pitfalls. Counties do it differently. Not everybody has an indigent council. I mean, there's different models that they employ. So as a whole of like public defense, I'm not one to speak on the health of that. That's definitely something Paula would need to speak to, or somebody from our court personnel.
All right, the state is still keeping up with their commitment to pay for
Yes, they
the
are.
money that was over what we had been spending.
Yeah, that was my other concern question, so thank you for clearing that up. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Welcome.
A couple of sorted matters, one to the board. I'm hearing that a number of us may be missing certain meetings coming up, so I will be sure to check in with Doreen or Jackie, make sure they've got your missing date. To the audience, in the next month, you might want to be sure to check the meeting schedule to see if there could be a time when we don't have a quorum and don't hold a meeting. In which case we post it, or we'll have some kind of meeting, although it may not be official if it's last minute. That's one thing. It's going to be tight in a couple dates, I think. Another thing I thought I'd mention, there are no committees for a long time. We've had meetings after this meeting. This week, actually, there are none. We talked about money coming for broadband. I was listening on WJR. They were talking about the legislature and the governor having agreed on, I think, like $4.2 billion in infrastructure money, but in this case for water, I think water and sewer, that's going to be available. And that's one of my only concerns with broadband is it's a sexier topic than water and sewer. We have a lot of issues, and I think particularly in the rural areas with water and sewer or water and septic that need to be dealt with. Hopefully this money will allow us to do something with that. We'll see. Things going on. I was able to last night attend Congressman McLean's dinner on the farm at Nolan's, and where they initially expected 200, they had 300 show up to listen to her and ask a lot of questions. An interesting event. Again, chance to focus on Congress and agriculture to some extent. Remind you again, if you like fish, VFW has their fish fry 5 to 7, and 4-H auction April 28th for the celebrity autographs, which I'm sure everybody needs, and April 30th for the really good stuff, merchandise, business services, collectible items for 4-H, our annual fundraiser for the county program. Any other topics that we need to
Respect the young ladies that showed up today that spoke about the $400 refund everybody had. I meant to comment to them if I could take a moment. So we appreciate you coming. What she was talking about, I got my $400, and I'm sure most of us could have probably survived without it. What happened is we changed the insurance policies because of the way they were. Our cost of insurance was up because we all have the only state of Michigan has this. I got PNC license, so I'm talking about it from what I know. But the PIP, the PIP as it's called, it took care of people, like she said, quadriplegic. So if you're in that situation, they were taken care of for the rest of their life. Is it rare that happens? Yes. Can it be you? Possibly. But we all didn't want to pay that premium in the state of Michigan for that, which is okay, and I understand everybody took a vote to do that. But we already had a pool of money set aside, and we didn't get all the money, but to make everybody happy, they gave us a portion of that money back. They gave it to us, I don't need it. And most of you here, I'm sure, no matter how poor you are, if you're poor, wouldn't need that $400. But now we have a place where we're trying to find out what we could do with these people who've already been taken care of. Who's gonna take care of them now? And where are they gonna go? It's a serious issue. It needs to be well discussed, so I hope they do get on the agenda, and we talk about this a little bit more. But there are people out there right now, because of that decision, that our legislators did. They were trying to do something for us. But yet they got all kinds of billions of dollars just flowing freely all over out there. They were neglecting our people. So I apologize for that, but thank you for coming down.
Okay, any last comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Support? Support. Adjourn.